Welcome to yet another episode, Pound for Pound Boxer Report. I'm your host, Michael. For those who are either simultaneously want to hear some boxing while watching the NBA Finals, or for those who are not interested in Game One of the NBA Finals and want to listen to all talk about sweet science, joining me this evening, usual cast of characters: Gail from NY Fights, and Gail Falkenthal on boxing. Daniel from Flora Boxing News and Inscriber, and back after a pretty lengthy hiatus. Um, a person who was pretty much a regular um, on Pound for Pound Boxing Report a few years ago. He's now back. Uh, 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 One Jacob Rivera himself. What's going on, everyone? And welcome back, Jacob. Welcome back. Long time no hear and see.
Hey, good to be back, man.
For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, etc., talking all things boxing. The motto is: when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it has any concern with the sweet science, it will get discussed. Um, if you wish to email us, you can do so. Um, P4P boxing at p4pboxing.com. If you check the description, for those who are watching us on YouTube, you'll find links to where to find Pound for Pound Box Report all over social media, links to the Facebook, links to the Facebook page, Twitter page, where to find us on IG, as well as the YouTube channel. And as I said a few weeks back, almost a month ago, excuse me, Pound for Pound Box Report is now, you want to say sponsored, that's okay. We are Pound for Pound Box Report is now an affiliate for Navrad and Nazar Fragrances. For those who are interested in all things smell good, please use the code um, Michael WP4P, MICHAELWP4P, and you can get 15% off on all things smell good. Take advantage right now for those with Father's Day coming up. If you're looking to get the male figure in your life, be it husband, be it son, be it loved one, that important male figure in your life, if you're looking to buy him some cologne, please check out all things that's on both Navrad and Nazar fragrances. Nazar fragrances in particular has a plethora of fragrances, while Navrad has fragrances and body care products. Again, Michael WP4P, and you'll get 15% off on everything in store at both Navrad and Nazar fragrances. And last but not least, um, Pound for Pound Box Report. If you wish to donate, let donation be the best nation. Wouldn't matter if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever you want to contribute. It'll help the overall production behind the scenes. Get things going, ladies and gents, by recapping what was a pretty busy boxing weekend all over the globe, right? Because there were so many fights, and because I don't want to have the show um, ex- carry on for an extended length of time, because I too am interested in the NBA Finals Game One. I want to split these fights up between everyone. We begin the show and end the show always with ladies first, so I go to you, Gail. Over in Russia, we saw the return of unified light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol. Mandatory defense against Michael Eifert, put him down in round one, had his way throughout with ease. To me, he didn't even have to get out of first gear on this one. Wasn't even pressed in round two, a unanimous decision win. Um, is it pretty much set in stone um, that next up for Bivol is a trilogy with Bertabiev?
It's not set in stone. No, it's absolutely not. There are options for Bivol. There are people on both sides of yes, the fight with Beterbiev for the trilogy makes sense. Others saying, do we really need to see it again? Pardon me, I had to hit the cough button quickly. Do we really want to see it one more time. The arguments in favor are there's still interest. Both fights were very competitive. They're 1-1. We'd like to see who could prevail. On the other hand, there's discussion that both guys are older. Beterbiev is into his 40s. How good will it really be? Not all trilogy fights are blockbusters. We have seen through boxing history that sometimes that third fight, just can't live up to the rest of the series. And then Bivol's got other options. He has talked about facing Beterbiev, or excuse me, Benavidez. We're on the B team here. That, he's the light heavyweight with all the belts, right? Yeah, I mean, in theory. And if Benavidez cares to drop from cruiserweight to light heavyweight, even possibly a bit of a catch weight for the light heavyweight titles, that's feasible. And it's not unprecedented for men with belts in two different weight divisions to put them all on the line at whatever weight class they mutually agree to, which would mean that Beterbiev would have the enticement of competing for a cruiserweight title in addition to the light heavyweight titles he's earned. He's pretty much stayed at light heavyweight. And there are a lot of boxing observers who really like multi-division champions, which is kind of ridiculous when you have somebody who's at the perfect weight, has always been at the right weight, stays at that weight, and achieves everything they want to in one weight division. But, you do hear chatter about that. So Bivol, looking to his future, has those options. And it's really going to come down to, I'm sure, who's going to give them the biggest check, right? Who's willing and where's the biggest payday? Bivol needs a dance partner also that's a ticket draw. And Beterbiev is really, especially in North America, not that draw. I'm not sure he's even that draw in the UK. Benavidez, he's a draw. For sure. And he's certainly a pay-per-view draw. I'm not sure that the pay-per-view for a third Beterbiev versus Bivol fight is that great. Because as skilled as Bivol is, we all wanted to see last weekend, how did he look after being off a long time? How did he look after having, fairly significant back surgery? He didn't look like he'd missed a step. He dropped his opponent in the first round, and we all thought, hot dog, he's got some fire in the belly finally. He's not going to just cruise to an easy victory. We spoke too soon. He did cruise to an easy victory. Too easy. He puts it on cruise control. He's so skilled. He doesn't have to burn. He doesn't have to fire up the afterburners almost ever. And while that's great for him, great for his longevity, I get it. It doesn't make for the most thrilling fight to watch. So, with all those variables in mind, I'm sure he and his team and his absolutely excellent, very smart manager, Vadim Kornilov, will sit down with all the players. And I have no doubt Vadim will figure out what the best offers are, what the most realistic offers are, talk about both money and legacy and figure it out. But he's got options. And, who knows how those might even shift in the next few months.
He does, Bivol, but I'm not going to lie. The fight that I want to see is him and David Benavidez. Benavidez, of course, is coming off of a win over Zerto at cruiserweight. However, he is still WBC champion at 175 pounds. I think a fight between Benavidez and Bivol is a top tier matchup in the sport. Good as any matchup that you could ever put together. But I can understand at the same time why Bivol may want to go for a trilogy with Beterbiev, particularly if the money's there. We will see. what is next in the cards for one Dmitry Bivol. Let's move on from Russia. And since it's been a long time since you've been out here, Jacob, I'll go to you. Let's go to Houston, right? Shaq Foster defending the WBC belt at 130 against Raymond Ford, who once held a belt at 126 pounds. Plenty of bad blood coming in, right? And interesting moment in the opening round where Foster kind of threw, well, not kind of, in a lot minds of a lot of people, threw Raymond Ford outside the ring. Technically, he could have got disqualified, right? But didn't. Foster, to me, got off to a little bit of a slow start, but really at the halfway mark, he really stepped on the gas.
I hear you.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now, Jacob? Can y'all hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. Let me start back. Let me start back over. Put yourself on mute again, Gail, if you don't mind. I'll start back over. Moving from Russia to Houston, you had Shaq Foster, right? Defending the belt, WBC version at 130. Fought Raymond Ford. A lot of bad blood going in. Interesting moment in round one, where to a lot of people, Foster threw Ford outside of the ring. To a lot of fans at the time, it looked intentional. Technically, Shaq Foster could have been disqualified, right? He wasn't. Got off to a bit of a slow start, did the champ, in my opinion, but halfway mark, he really kind of found himself, found his groove, and was pretty much in control of the second half of the fight. One going away against Ford, who I was disappointed in his performance. Assess what you saw in the fight, and what do you think of all this talk from Foster wanting to move up to fight Shakur Stevenson? It's looking like Jacob can't hear us right now. What you may have to do, Jacob, is either reboot your system or log off and try to come back on. So instead, the question that I had towards Jacob, I'll forward it over to you, Daniel.
Well, this was interesting. This was a fun fight. I said it last week when we did the preview that these two do not like each other. And based on that throw that Oshaka did, it was a blatant throw outside of the ring. You could tell that the bad blood was there. But what surprised me the most when it came to this fight is the fact that even though Ford does really well moving forward, really does well setting up his punches and look good when it came to stamina, it looked like he didn't have a lot of stamina in this fight as he got into the later rounds. Oshaki Foster was landing a little bit more.
Now I can hear something.
Oh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now, Jacob?
Can you hear us now, Jacob?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let Daniel continue on with his commentary, and then you can follow up, please.
Yeah. All right. So I was finishing up because one of the things that I noticed early on when you're looking at that fight was also Oshaki Foster's right uppercut was there for him almost throughout the entire fight. It almost seemed like anytime Ford was able to get any sort of momentum, Oshaki just threw that shot there and reset everything. And sometimes it's just a matter of knowing your skill set. And that's what Oshaki Foster did. He landed quick combinations going inside. He landed the uppercut at will. And it looked like he was a much more conditioned fighter between these two. And well, I'll give Ford credit. Like he didn't try to chicken out. He didn't try to bunk out. He even had a really good amount for good offense for a few rounds, but at the same time, it didn't look like he had enough gas to press on Shockey Foster the way I think he thought he was going to. And that's a credit to Shockey Foster too. He's been very underrated, mainly because of his size and mainly because he's not known as a pressure power fighter. He's more like a finesse skill boxer. But he showed that, hey, he does have a mean streak and he knows how to press it when he needs to.
I'll go to you, Jacob. Brief word on the fight and thoughts on all of this talk from Shock Foster wanting a fight with Shakur Stevenson. Is that wise?
I mean, I admire that he wants the smoke, but I personally think that Shakur would completely demolish him. I just think that there's levels to this, and the fight. It's not like he ran away with the fight against Ford. I mean, Ford didn't seem to have a plan B, and it seemed like he got frustrated and tired, as the fight went on, and Foster got stronger. But I think I mean, I admire the wanting to get that fight, but I don't think that'd be a competitive fight. I could see Shakur even stopping him.
And given the news that kind of broke a couple of days ago, and we'll talk about that in the news segment, there's the chances of that fight ever happening, or at least in the immediate future, do not know yet. We'll talk about that later on. Let me go from Houston, from Russia to Houston to El Paso, going back to you, Gail. Uh, a Jake Paul card, of course, a lot of women's championship fights. Though I didn't put it in the description here, turned out to be an outstanding fight between Yocosta Valier and Juarez for a belt for her Juarez's belt at 108 pounds. Juarez defended her title. Valier was valiant. Am I wrong in thinking I would love to see these two ladies go back at it again in a rematch?
I am not enthusiastic about a rematch. The scores were close on the cards. The fight was not that close, honestly. Valle is a decorated champion and has been a very strong ambassador for women's boxing in all of Central America, not just her home country of Costa Rica, where she's a huge star. But she is at the tail end of her career and was signed to MVP, which was a very smart move on their part because she is very popular. She is very accomplished, and having a fighter in the lower weight divisions with that kind of resume was really a good move. But she lost her titles to Sadisa Estrada, as most people remember, a couple of years ago. She has been fighting ever since, but on small cards in Costa Rica, in Mexico. She had a fight against Marlon Esparza, which was a comeback. She did win that fight. This was finally her opportunity to come back in and really shine. Now, she had won a world minimum weight belt about 6 months ago, but had moved up to light flyweight for this fight. Whether the issue was the weight, whether the issue was, her age, her experience, and for a woman professional, she is not old in the least. She's only 33, but she's had a lot of fights. So I'm not sure if anything, she should not do an immediate rematch. I would like to see her test herself somewhere else. And then if she is given the opportunity to fight Juarez again, so be it. But I don't think an immediate rematch is the right path for her.
Also on this card, Daniel, Desley Robinson, right? Unified middleweight, women's middleweight champion at 160. It seems like the division is being ignored ever since Clarissa Shields left 160, right? Or put it,
Yep.
or more specific, ever since the fight between Shields and Savannah Marshall back in what was it, 22? I believe it was. Uh, Robinson
22, 21.
fought 22, 21, one of those. Yeah, I want to say it's 22. If I'm wrong, my apologies. Someone correct me. She fought Mary Spencer Robinson. Just a case of me for me. Um, Not just the bigger lady won, the bigger, more skilled, in my opinion, and the one in better shape. Just had more in the tank and was able to carry through when it counted. Your thoughts on and Robinson? She could technically go for undisputed, fighting the other champion in the division. I want to say her name is Pratt. If I'm wrong, my apologies. But the state of the women's middleweight division um, now in 2026.
Yeah. On the fight itself, Robinson, this was arguably, not, probably not arguably, her best performance from beginning to end. She was a much quicker fighter. She always landed better combinations. She maintained her distance. It just looked like this fight was not an issue for her at all, which, to be fair, it wasn't. And when I started thinking about it and considering the lack of opponents that Clarissa has had, I started thinking about it. Well, one middleweight in the women's division, yeah, it's been pretty down bad. Why not try to coax Clarissa into a fight in that area, even though you'll lose? More than likely, because if Vince Robinson blows with Clarissa at this stage, they still say Clarissa wins. But there's not much to do, unfortunately, and at 160 in the division. Not unless you wait for somebody like Michaela Mayer to put herself into that picture. But that's going to take a little bit of a while. So, unfortunately, when it comes to that weight division and to the women, there's not a lot out there. But for Robinson, they said hats off to you. Fantastic performance. This card overall, I can say, was entertaining from top to bottom.
Indeed, and I'll go to you, Jacob. Listen, when it comes to Amanda Serrano, do I think she's on the down side of her career? Absolutely. But she is still formidable, and you don't poke the bear. That's what Cheyenne Hanson did throughout the lead up, especially during the weigh-in. Uh, Serrano kept a mental note of that. And once the bell rang, she tore into her and ran through her like a hot knife through butter. Stopped her in two. Kind of reminded me of the old Serrano when she was just a buzzsaw, say 5, 10 years ago. She gets the win here. What is next? A lot of people say Bumgardner. Um, I know Bumgardner wants to fight. Serrano talked about it as well during the post fight with both ladies in the camp of Paul. Is that basically an inevitability at this point?
Yeah, it seems like that would be the smart, like as you said, Serrano's at towards the end of her career, or she's alluded to wanting to kind of like hang him up. And I believe this KO tied the record, I think, for KOs. So, she's had a brilliant career. You can argue that, I would argue that she won 2 of the 3 fights that she lost in the cards to Katie Taylor. So, yeah, I mean, having a fight with Bumgardner, who's still, at the top, but like as we said earlier, maybe isn't the fighter that she claims that she is. I think it could be an exciting fight. Both hopefully would engage, and then, I would probably favor even though she's older, I would probably favor Serrano because I think she has that kind of mentality to kind of come forward and make a fight of things. And then if of course, if it's like a 3-minute round, then I would also give her the advantage there too.
Last but not least, Gil, the main event, Stephanie Hahn fighting in her hometown of San Antonio, fighting Holly Holm. The two ladies fought previously. Just when the fight was starting to cook, Hahn suffered a cut. They ran it back this time, and the reason I have this particular episode named Hometown Decision with a question mark, because it appears to me, to my eyes, I can't speak for anyone else, to my eyes, that Holly Holm won that fight. She was the better woman in that ring, pretty much from second, third round on. When we talked about it last week, the question that we had from Holly Holm was, at this age, did she still have the pepper? She showed certainly that she did, or maybe Stephanie Hahn is a little bit overrated. I don't want to. I know that's a little bit harsh, but Caroline Dubois, right, unified champion at 135, was at ringside. She's probably not worried about any of these ladies, but when it comes to this specific fight, the right woman did not win. The woman who deserved to have her hand raised in victory was one Holly Holm.
Well, as I expressed at the time on social media and in my recap report for NY Fights, I saw Holm winning that fight with a far improved performance than in her first matchup with Hahn. And I saw no degradation in Hahn's skills, who has for most of her career up until signing with MVP been working full-time as an El Paso City police officer, and she is the mother of a special needs child and had to train. So she was finally able to put in a full-time training camp, and it certainly showed. But wow, 44-year-old Holly Holm was in tremendous shape. She learned from her first fight, her sort of short-circuited first fight against Hahn, which was stopped in the 7th round after the accidental headbutt cuts to Holm. And she put those lessons into play. Good for her, regardless of the outcome. She looked good. She belonged in that ring. And at the post-fight news conference, she indicated that she intends to continue. However, she isn't quite sure whether there'll be a fork in the road toward boxing or back toward MMA, where she's still also competitive. But she showed that she can hang. She showed that she can deliver. She's one of those fighters that gets better as the fight goes on. Her conditioning was outstanding, really good. That will serve her well moving forward. I saw her picking up rounds, and she won virtually every round in the second half, as far as I'm concerned. Hahn won the early rounds. Then you had a few that were, close calls. And then I saw Holm coming on to win. Obviously, she was very disappointed. I'm not going to say it was home cooking, but judges can be influenced by the crowd, and the crowd was going crazy for Stephanie Hahn. No question. They were lit. It was a sold-out venue. So judges do hear that, and they hear crowds react to punches landed. So, was that part of it? It's hard to say. But I would love to see them go at it one more time. However, if I'm Stephanie Hahn, I'm not going to entertain that, and I'm certainly not going to do it right away. And, the whole MVP stable, much as the other promoter stables, the MVP stable of stars all shows up. And so many of their top women were there. Tiara Brown was training for a fight coming up here in a week, was there. Caroline was there. Michaela Mayer was on the call, who did a phenomenal job. She's built to be a broadcaster. That's in her future. And Caroline stood up at the post-fight news conference and called out Holly. Good for them. And Stephanie Hahn, because Stephanie Hahn's got a belt she wants. That would be a unification fight. That really is the correct fight for Hahn. Next is against Dubois. I would favor Dubois, especially if Hahn, as she stated last week, would be willing to go to the UK for that fight. And it would certainly be a draw. But I'll tell you, Hahn got people out to the venue in El Paso to see their hometown fighter. And what was fascinating is if you did watch the post-fight news conference and paid a little bit of attention, the media asking the questions weren't the usual gaggle of people we hear from Fight Hype and, the various website brand names or boxing scene. It was 8 News from El Paso. It was their local newspaper. This was a headline event in the city of El Paso, not just for boxing. All of their local TV affiliates were there. Their newspaper was there. Their news websites were there. These were general interest sportscasters asking the questions. That is so good for boxing to seeing be covered in mainstream sports. Obviously, it was also carried on ESPN. So you've got ESPN there, participating in the post-fight news conference. So there were just so many positives. And honestly, the other aspect of this is that there was a lot of controversy about the main event. There was a lot of chatter. On social media, among observers, among those of us observing and covering outside the venue. The fact that people were arguing about the outcome of a woman's professional title fight, there is nothing but good about that. Nothing but positive, that people cared enough to bitch about it. I'll take the wins on the women's side of the sport anywhere I can get them. That's a win as far as I'm concerned. It was getting attention. Daniel in our show notes here just commented that it was the largest sellout in that particular venue. Yes. It's not a huge venue. Now, admittedly, it wasn't a 25,000 seat venue. I think it's about an 8,000 seat venue. But nevertheless, it sold out. It got that kind of general media attention. Fantastic. But let's go ahead and see, I think that Hahn Dubois is the right fight. It's the right fight for MVP. Whether they take it to the UK later in the summer or they keep it here, they've got great options. And they've got a lot of UK talent on the roster. So they are loading up with title fights and contenders. They've made an aim for their MVPW branded cards to have 3 to 4 title fights per card. And they had 4 on this one. So good for them. That is the right direction to go. I do think it's funny that, here we are talking about Desley Robinson potentially trying to tee up a fight with Claressa Shields, which I love the idea, but MVPW has banned Claressa Shields from showing up at their events. So, they'd have to give her a one-time dispensation, I think, to show up at a news conference, a weigh-in, and the fight.
And they better let go of that lawsuit that Bumgarner has against them, which I think is weak sauce, but that's a discussion.
You know what? Anybody can file a civil lawsuit about anything. It's a civil lawsuit. It's not a criminal lawsuit. It makes news. It's a shot across the bow. I don't see anything coming of it.
I mean, listen, you cannot say that. You cannot sit there and declare you're going to whoop someone's behind, someone respond to someone's face, and they respond by smacking you in the jaw, and all of a sudden you get in your feelings and you want to file a lawsuit and come on, stop.
Slapped her. She didn't punch her. She slapped her.
That's why I said slapped her in the face. I mean, and she's been running her mouth about. They've been running their mouths about each other for who knows how long. I mean, settle it in the ring.
The men have done this for decades. Decades. There have been beefs like this forever. And some are more legit than others. The fans reacted different ways depending on the circumstances. Again, if it's happening with the men, why wouldn't it happen with the women? The reaction should be the same, but people got all up in outrage where if it was two men, if there were, no permanent injuries or marks left, they'd blow it off. So
I'd call out a dude if he files what I consider a frivolous lawsuit as well. So I'm not.
It's just silly, ridiculous.
Same standards with me.
Look how Devin Haney got toasted over that lawsuit he filed against Ryan Garcia. Please. And, it was ridiculous, but, technically he had more grounds than Alicia does against Clarissa. But, yeah, I think she understands the value of the publicity and the chatter. She is certainly from the, there's no such thing as bad publicity school. She needs to be careful about that. Women are definitely held to different standards, not just in boxing, but in all sports and all life. So she needs to be very realistic about that.
Indeed. Let's move on to some news here. And during our discussion about O'Shaquie Foster's successful title defense against Raymond Ford, the name of Shakur Stevenson came up. And I said there's the possibility of a fight between Foster and Shakur happening. I'm not sure of. It's not high on a scale, as far as I'm concerned, and that was because according to Eddie Hearn during an interview this week, and I'll get everybody into this discussion, and starting with you, Jacob. According to Eddie Hearn, Shakur has signed with Zuffa Boxing. Now, in previous episodes, we've been pretty cynical of Zuffa Boxing and the way that they're operating the business model. But Dana White says he believes he's going to sign up most of these fighters, and stars included. What your reaction to Hearn saying that Shakur is now with Zuffa?
I mean, I kind of agree with him. Like, I don't know that Zuffa Boxing long term is going to be good for boxing. If you look at the UFC model and like how they treat their fighters and the pay and all that stuff, and then them trying to get rid of the Muhammad Ali Act or redefine that. I mean, I think they have something up their sleeve, so it's kind of a shame, but it's also, it's prize fighting. So if people are going to offer them money and these deals, people are going to take it, especially in this day and age when, fighters don't fight maybe once a year or whatnot, so if it's a big name and they get enough people to sign, I can't really fault them for that, but I hope they don't ruin boxing, because I know that their claim is they're trying to, have the Zuffa belt be like the one and only belt instead of having the sanctioning bodies. And I hate the sanctioning bodies just as much as anybody else, in their corruption. But I don't know that this is the route to go. But like I said before, even if that Foster fight does happen, and I think Shakur completely demolishes them.
Going to read a comment here in the chat from MG is here. He says, speaking of Devin Haney, there are rumors that he is signing with Zuffa. He's asking everyone here, what do you think of a fight between him and Keyshawn Davis? I didn't put it here in the chat, but it is anticipated that in short, Keyshawn is going to be moved up to number one, going to be moved up to mandatory number one by the WBO at 147, right? And with that, it is expected that the WBO mandate a fight between Haney and Davis. Is not official yet, but the indications are that's what's going to happen. So I go to you, Gail. Answer MG's question about the possibility of a fight between Haney and Keyshawn. and go back to the discussion when it comes to Shakur. Good move or bad move that he's signing with Zuffa?
Shakur is looking for fights and looking for money, and that's where they are resting. He's a free agent at this point. Um, it's the same with it's the same with all these guys. The matchup is all going to depend on what the guy signing the check, one Turkey Al Sheikh, decides he wants. Of all those fighters, the one that he personally favors and likes the most is Devin. It's Devin Haney. Devin's his guy. He's been very good to him. So I am pretty confident that if they are all heading that direction, the Devin is going to be the A side. I don't think he wants to take a chance on Keyshawn. Keyshawn's behavior has been, shall we say, erratic. He isn't a fighter you can rely on. And if you were going to write those big ass checks, you want to make sure these guys are going to show up and perform. Shakur is reliable. We know exactly what you're going to get. In a fight between Shakur and Devin Haney, if Shakur is moving up that far to welterweight, I mean, that's a big ask, but he needs a challenge. What's left out there for him? Style matchup, it would be an exquisite technical fight between the two of them. That is not going to be a crowd-pleasing, blockbuster, fight of the year type of fight. It's just not. That's not who they are. But it's a great matchup. But it really depends on who's buying, right? Is it really a main event fight? Well, I'm sure both Devin and Shakur feel it should be, but they would be very wise if it is a main event on a card. They do settle on a co-main or two main events. It's easy to say that. That's a complete and utter banger, right? So that people buying is sure to be a pay-per-view. Get their money's worth, because this will be one of those Zuffa in Saudi Arabia cards. This is not going to be a numbered Zuffa card. Clearly, we are seeing a fork in that promotional road for Zuffa and TKO, very much like the UFC is. You've got your numbered big ticket fights, the pay-per-views, and then you've got UFC Fight Night, which is, more the minor series. The stuff that's going to be on Paramount Plus that is not an extra fee on those Sunday night cards, that's the equivalent, it looks like, it's going to be the equivalent of what UFC Fight Night is. And then you're going to have these bigger fights scattered here and there around the Zuffa, TKO, Sella, Saudi financed universe.
Your reaction to this, Daniel?
When I think I put it out there on Twitter. So much for that face off with Oshaki. What they had right after the fight. Like I said, it's all worth it. To me, if you sign at this point with Dana White for Zuffa Boxing, you pretty much have taken yourself out completely out of any actual discussion when it comes to a title fight. That's how Zuffa wants it to do, because they want their belt to be the only belt that matters. That's not going to be the case. And then looking at the individual matchups, like with Haney versus Shakur, and they're both signed to Zuffa, they're both really good. They're both really sound technical fighters, but they don't have a mean streak, unfortunately, that could make it a real dogfight in between them. It'll be an entertaining fight from a pure standpoint, but as far as if you're trying to get the casuals in, it won't be the case. Now, granted, if we would have gotten a Shockey Foster versus Shakur, it would be something similar, except for the fact that Shakur's the naturally bigger fighter. So unfortunately it's a messy situation because first we have to see if Zuffa Boxing gets what they actually want to get, which is obviously the dismantling of the Muhammad Ali Act. With the way the political winds are blowing, they may not get a shot. But it's going to be interesting to see how they move the pieces. Because, like I mentioned, Keyshawn Davis is now going to be the number one contender at welterweight for Haney. I want to do the fight if I was Haney, not to duck, but just because of the fact that, unfortunately, Gail's right. Keyshawn Davis has not shown to be fully reliable as a fighter, whether it's by preparation or how he looks in the ring. And that's a sad thing to say.
Even if Keyshawn is at his best, right? If Haney is at his best, I would beat Haney. I would predict Haney, to beat Keyshawn. But the problems too, I think your point, Daniel, and to Gail's point as well, you just can't trust Keyshawn because of his behavior, right? Multiple times that he's now missed weight. His performances have been up and down, and his attitude and his mental outside of the ring. And I don't say this as a just to demonize him, but that's been unstable as well. So you can't say that you can't put your trust in him. As far as Shock and Shakur and the signing of Shakur, first and foremost, it's my belief that Shock Foster should go after Navarrete instead of a fight with Shakur, right? Navarrete, coming off of an impressive performance in this last fight, plan to return into the ring in September in Mexico. If I'm Foster, why not go for that? He's fought in Mexico before. It would be unification. It would be on a Turkey Al Sheikh card, so that would probably equal a career high payday. From a financial perspective, I think that may be the better option. In terms of Shakur, I agree with the general assessment here. It's coming off as a sheer money grab when it comes to all of these fighters, that Dana White is putting up a whole lot of money up front, and these fighters are taking the bait. But behind the scenes, what is the immediate and long-term future of Shakur with this signing? To Roy Jones' point, during his epic rant, during his form of TED Talk, if you will, a few weeks back, belts matter, right? Tradition matters. And the problem is, my problem, and a lot of folks' problem with Dana White and this model, he's basically throwing a middle finger, not just at the belts, but at tradition and the fighters that he's signing up. People are like, he's not signing up. He's starting to maybe a little bit now, but I just don't trust what he's planning to do. I don't trust how he's going to treat those fighters that he's signing long term. And Zuffa belt will never carry more weight and gravitas than the BC, IBF, BA, and WBO. So while these guys are shooting for the money, I don't know if they will create any kind of real legacy signing over with Zuffa. And in this sport, it should be both. Money and legacy should be tied together. And unfortunately, there's a chasm in that in terms of what Dana White is doing.
Let me jump in there, though. There was at one point that were only 2 major belts, and for a long time 3, right? And we could have said the same thing when a 4th belt entered the picture. Yeah, it's a trinket. It'll never mean anything. Never is a long time. The way that guys like Dana White, with his well-financed partners, succeed is they they come in hot and they outbid everybody until the rest of the competitors fall away. And that's what he did with UFC. It takes a lot of money and a lot of patience to do it. But saying it can't or will never be done, I think people have been proven wrong before, and I think it's very possible they'll be proven wrong again. Will happen in our lifetime? That's the other question. Let me just go back to Foster and Navarrete. That's the fight to make. And there are bubbles on the bottom of the pan already that it will possibly be part of this Mexico versus the world card with the main event between Canelo Alvarez and Christian and Billy. Love to see that.
The only pushback I will have to your first point, okay, about the forever point. Look at the state of UFC now. Look at the state of UFC now.
I'll
It's
tell you
in a,
why the state of UFC now is what it is because Dana has lost interest and moved on. Not that there was a problem with the model, there's just nobody at the helm right now.
that's my point.
And they do not, and they lack, and my firm belief is they lack for top American stars, American-born stars. It's a lot of the performers from Eastern Europe, Brazil, they're great. They're very skilled. They're talented. It is difficult to build personalities around a lot of those guys. Unlike, somebody like a John Jones, right? Dana, part of what has made this successful is you do need somebody hand on the steering wheel. Dana is being spread too thin, and they have not found a proper replacement for him. I think partially because he doesn't want to admit he can't run both shows at the same time, and he can't. He just can't. So
that's my point. I think it's ego with him.
But I think we all underestimate their path to success at our peril.
I never trust an egomaniac long term, particularly when it's tied to this many with this kind of money on the line. I just don't.
There were a lot of people who would call Don King and Bob Arum egomaniacs, and they were very successful.
But at least when it comes to
until Arum, they weren't.
Yeah, and at least when it comes to Arum, you never heard of him not underpaying him not doing wrong by his fighters particularly when it came to pay. Unlike King.
I think Mikey Garcia and Terrence Crawford would like a word.
Well, there's that, and we'll be blunt, even though
Oscar De La Hoya, for that matter, who sued him.
Floyd Mayweather too.
Yep.
But we'll also say this: even though we in the boxing community have the joke when it comes to the WBO being called "We're Bob's organization,"
right?
It's still an independent sanctioning body. It is still something that has a level of independence from the promoters, no matter how paper thin that is.
And the other part is when we've seen this model before. King tried to sign in everybody. It didn't work for him. It failed. Long term, it failed.
Yep.
It couldn't sustain itself. It will not sustain itself with White. It will not.
Yeah, I hope the tragedy isn't that he signs all these guys, but then kind of like how the PBC, like the right guys aren't fighting the right people because, if you're the IBF champion, you don't want to give up your belt, for the Zuffa belt because it doesn't, mean the same to you and the money's not there because you're not a name. And then, these people can be put on the shelves. Yeah, they're making money, but then boxing itself suffers because we're not seeing the fights happen when they should. And, and as often, right? Like that's one of my frustrating things about boxing is that these fighters are only fighting like once a year, it seems like now, versus, back in the days when they would fight, sometimes 3 times a year.
Last word on that, Gail, because it seems like it came. If it comes off as me trying to talk over you just to win an argument, that's not what I'm trying to do. Just trying to make my point. So, last word to you on this one.
No. I had my say. It's just I think that those of us who do not love this model, who do not love the Zuffa model, who do not love the manipulation of the law in the United States to benefit them, we may not like it, but we should not underestimate its chances of success on its terms, especially because the money backing is there. To Dana's credit, UFC did not have that kind of money when it started and did not have that sort of exposure, but he hung in there and he made it work. He has a proven track record of making these things work. Does it look good right now? No. However, if you have been watching the cards, the Sunday night cards, they have increasingly been getting better. The last one that featured Mosley and Boachuk was a damn good card. Were there a lot of well-known names? No, there were not. But that's how you start. They've got Turkey's money to pay the big stars to draw attention as a promotional element. And we also have to remember when the Saudi money is involved, the Saudis do not need to make a profit. Matchroom Boxing as a business without the paychecks occasionally to their fighters from Saudi, they need to make money. Golden Boy Boxing, Oscar De La Hoya needs to stage cards that make money. Queensberry, same thing. Salida, same thing. They go out of business if they can't make money with their fighters because it's a profit-making operation. That's how you pay the venue, hire the commentators, pay the fighters, right? The Saudis do not care. This is a marketing expense. It is not a profit-making business for them. They are out to, you hear the term sports washing. I think that's a fair consideration. They are making themselves warm and friendly to the combat sports loving fans around the world, that they only are here to make all of us happy by staging the fights we want to see. And you know what? That message is working with a whole lot of people who, even those who understand the origin of the money from the Saudi government, say, you know what? I get it. I don't care because they're giving me the fights we want to see. It is also drawing tourism and investment, particularly from Europe. Honestly, the American audience is not of all that much importance to the Saudis, really, other than we do deliver American boxing talent to their shows. But staging fights here, they don't like it. Honestly, Turki Al-Sheikh would be happy if he never had to have a fight card on the shores of North America ever again. And he has said so.
I left this question up public from MG is here on purpose because I want it to be addressed before we move on. He says, I'm hearing a bit of skepticism about Zuffa from y'all. Does this mean that we will not see Benavidez and Benavidez versus Opetaya? First question to your first point. Yeah, because there should be skepticism because the way you don't run roughshod and think you can just bully the sport like this from behind the scenes. A, B, to your question, do I think we will see Benavidez versus Opetaya as it stands right now on June 6, 2026? It's highly questionable. It's highly questionable because as it's looking right now, and if y'all can chime in, it may be a big mistake for Opetaya to sign with Zuffa. Stripped of the title when he shouldn't have been. And if he would have stayed with Matchroom, I think there would have been a better possibility of him fighting with Benavidez as opposed to the possibility happening now where he's fighting Zuffa. Let's let this question, MG's question, be the last word before we move on to talk about some upcoming fights.
Let's just point out, however, that while we know Opataya signed a multi-year promotional deal, we don't know what the duration or the financials are of the contract. A multi-year contract could be a 2-year contract. It can be a 3-fight or 2-fight contract. We don't know. So will it be the next fight? I don't think so. Will it be a fight near the end of 2027 or beginning of 2028? If and when Opataya clears himself from Zuffa Boxing, maybe. Because we do not know what the terms were. We just know the mess that went down the last time with the IBF. So hopefully they'll work that out. If there's money involved that greases the palms of all parties, they'll work it out.
We will see.
I agree. I think if the money is there and the desire is there, like I think Benavidez is targeting Bivol, but if Bivol is going to fight Beterbiev to do the trilogy fight, then that kind of ties him up, and I think Benavidez would definitely entertain, because I don't like the idea of him going to heavyweight. I know that was a bunch of talk that was happening with
not yet anyway, not yet.
I don't think I ever want to see it. I think because of the way that his last fight went, I think people are like jumping the gun too much. But I would love to see an Opataya fight, and he said that he would like to fight him. So again, like you said, Gail, if the money's right, money does a lot lot motivating. For people, it is prize fighting. We can't forget that. So and I think Benavidez is one of those people that like he wants to prove himself against the best. Like he's not scared of, I don't think he's scared of anybody, so that would be a challenge. I think the only thing that could be the hiccup is that because if it's under the Zuffa banner for the Zuffa belt, does that mean that the belts that he has to drop them, or he they strip him of it, and then does he want to take that risk? Does that close the door? Because I don't know how many fighters after that fight that Zuffa has in the stable for him to fight, that are interesting enough.
Well, the other issue for Benavidez is apparently been ordered to face Noel McKellian as a mandatory.
Yep.
So you got that. But who has a belt? So that's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
Yeah. He has to handle the mandatory.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, he has to handle the mandatory, and from what I've been able to dig up a little bit, at least like when it comes to preliminary Zuffa contracts. Now, keep in mind, this is against like fighters who are starting out their careers. It is a very, very restrictive contract. And it's a contract that apparently if you become a champion, it automatically extends. So there's that issue. I don't know if Jai got that type of contract. Hopefully he didn't. But everything depends upon what do you do when it comes to money. If Dana White's emphasis to the point is you have to fight for my belt and only for my belt, you cannot bring any other belts to the discussion, then yeah, you're not going to see this. You're not going to see Opataya versus Benavidez for a good while. Because luckily David has options at 175. And while I can understand Jacob's apprehension of not wanting to see Benavidez at heavyweight, he's a much better fit for it than, let's say, Roy Jones was when he did the fight with Reese, even though Roy Jones won. So there is that.
One more news story before we move on to preview some fights here. Announced that Katie Taylor's farewell fight will be September against Flora Pili, right? A lot of speculation about who fight Taylor would fight for her swan song. I get it, y'all. Whoever wants to comment first, please do so. Step in. I get it. One, it makes Baumgartner look stupid for trying to hold out for that fight when she had the when there's Caroline Dubois on the table, because anybody with sense knows that she would not get that opportunity to fight Taylor, right? I never felt that Katie Taylor in her final fight in her home country in Crook Park, that she would just go at she would fight someone who would pose the greatest of threats, right? Um, opponent a caliber of a Serrano, opponent a caliber of Dubois at 135, moving up to 140, even the opponent the caliber of a Chantel Cameron. The point for me was when it came to Katie Taylor, she wanted to fight at Crook Park. That was the goal, not necessarily the opponent. As long as she got that venue for her last fight, that was the point, that was the goal, that was the mission. So I leave it to y'all. Thoughts on the announcement of Katie Taylor, her swan song from boxing coming up in September.
Flora Pili is undefeated, although you may not know her. She also is the holder of the minor, still existing IBO World Super Lightweight title. She does, in theory, have a belt. She has 12 wins, only 2 are by knockout. She's 28, so, in her prime. She's also the WBC mandatory for Taylor. So it's, for what this is intended to be, it's the perfect matchup. She is not a knockout threat. She has fought decent competition. She fought in her last fight former world champion Jelena, and I can never say this woman's name. Apologies, Jelena Jasinovic. All her fights, however, have been in France, so it makes it very difficult to judge. But who are we kidding? This fight was never going to be staged against anyone high risk to Taylor. It is her farewell. It is her love letter
Exactly.
to her fans in Ireland. They want to see a win. They do not want to see a banger. They do not want to see the crap kicked out of her at this venue in front of 80,000 of her devoted fans. She is the single most famous athlete in Ireland. She is beloved by her country. This is exactly the fight that needed to be staged. Now, even up to as early as this morning in interviews with Sky Sports, interviews on British media, Eddie Hearn is still saying, well, it's not locked in. Oh, I don't know who you're talking to. It's not locked in. Well, apparently the WBC, I don't know if it was Mauricio Suleiman or one of his, minions, just could not help themselves. And apparently they yapped that it was confirmed. But the truth is, we knew it was confirmed when many of us, including me, first thing this morning, got an invitation to come to a big announcement on Friday at Croke Park. Now, what do we think that's about? We know what that's about. We know exactly what that's about. So Friday, there will be a news conference. I don't know the timing of it exactly back to the United States. I'm sure it'll be early in the morning on Friday. This will all, finally be made official. Credit to Eddie Hearn for getting this across the finish line. Booking that venue was really, really difficult. The date is supposedly September 5th. So just if you're booking your travel, just make sure you remember what I always say about boxing. Do not make non-refundable travel plans.
Your thoughts on this, Daniel? The final fight of Katie Taylor's career.
Folks, like I said, I understand people being mad at the fact that it's not somebody like Alicia Baumgartner or possibly giving another fight to Amanda Serrano where she can avenge her wins again. But Katie Taylor, pretty much her status in Irish boxing has earned her this. Has earned her the right to face, to have a cup. Let's be blunt. To have what can be considered a cupcake defense, a cupcake fight, to end her career in many ways. She's earned that. I'm not going to deny that. Now, will it be the final fight in the future? We don't know. Boxing is a lot like wrestling. Retirements can live so long until somebody drops a contract. So we have to see, because luckily with Taylor, like at the end of the day, she's always going to be remembered as a great when it comes to the amateur. She's going to be remembered for her fights against Serrano, for basically being able to take almost every fight that she's given to it and made it an exciting fight. Even in the ones where you can tell that she lost the fight but won the decision.
I have no real pushback against what Daniel and Gail say, because I agree pretty much with um, what they said. Um, um, you was not going to see a super challenging opponent for Taylor, right? No high risk. The goal, I guess I'll repeat again, was to stage, was to land that fight, and she's doing it. And salute to her for her career. I do think she's going to be done. She is done after this fight. I mean, she's had a long, lengthy career. She's made plenty of money. I think she's either getting married or newlywed. I think she just got married. So she's looking forward to living to life beyond boxing, and I'm not mad at her for that. Salute to her. Still number one pound for pound on my personal list of women boxers and future Hall of Famers. So absolutely, early congratulations to what has been a fantastic Hall of Fame career. Let's move on to some future fights here. I'm going to focus in Japan. Gail and Daniel. I want to give a thanks to Jacob. He had to dip out due to some other obligations. If you want to talk movies, because he is a movie buff, you can check out Jacob on Twitter at JRATM. Let me repeat that, at JRATM on Twitter to talk boxing and movies as well. Heading to Japan, Gail, to talk about fights this weekend. I want to focus on those bouts. Willibaldo Garcia, right, fighting Andrew Moloney. With Garcia, IBF champion at 115 for a hot minute, or for a little bit. There was talk about him possibly fighting Jesse Bam Rodriguez, but Bam has made the official jump up to 118 pounds, right? Good, solid world champion is Garcia. Gail, fighting an Andrew Moloney, who's been a stable in that division for a number of years. A lot of people remember him for the knockout loss to Nakatani a few years back. He's up there in years. Does he have the skills at his best to beat a Garcia? Yes, but do I see it happening? No. Your thoughts on this fight, and you can follow up, Daniel.
Andrew Moloney, he has just had a rough road with he has hit so many bumps up and down. I mean, bumpy ride is an understatement. Garcia, he has not fought since he won the IBF title in his rematch against Rene Calixto. He's 36. The mythology about age in the lower weight divisions is that those smaller division fighters age more quickly, right? That you very rarely see fighters in their late 30s at the highest level. Again, Nonito Donaire would like to have a word, but nevertheless, that myth persists. So you have a 36-year-old who has been out of the ring 13 months. Moloney has a 2-fight winning streak. He has had 3 title shots, lost them all, but he has not given up. He's remained viable. If the 4th time can be the charm, this might be it. It very well could be it. Yes, he lost. He lost to Nakatani in spectacular fashion. Um, and then he also lost to Joshua Franco and Pedro Guevara. You know, he claims he's been working hard. He's applied the lessons of all those fights. He feels like he's got the right opponent this time. Um, you know, he was supposed to fight last summer in a title eliminator. That didn't happen because there were aspects of the fight that kept changing, and he pulled out. He feels like he's been waiting. He wasn't willing to let anybody else take his spot for this. He finally has got it. You know, it is gonna be a challenge, but you know, they are both fighting away from home, you know, so Japan is in theory neutral turf for both of them. Truthfully, the travel is longer for Garcia than it is for Moloney. I would think the fans might be behind Moloney. They know him well, you know, in Japan, certainly after Nakatani took him out. Yeah, we'll see what happens. If he's going to ever win that elusive title, this is the time to do it. This is the time where he has a legitimate chance to do it. I'm not saying I think he will, but I think he'll give it as good a go as he ever has in this fourth attempt.
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, this to me is going to be a very interesting fight for Moloney. The both Moloney brothers have not exactly had the most, I would say, smooth journey in boxing lately after having initial success. But I do think like his mindset is right. He has a good opponent that complements his style a bit better, and the fact that you do have that pressure of being a hometown fight off you works well in their favor, because having a hometown fight can be a gift and a curse. It can be a gift because you bring your people in, people are excited for you, you have a natural born fan base ready to ride for you, which can work fairly well, like we've seen with Stephanie Hahn. But it can also lead to a little bit of complacency, and sometimes if you don't perform, it be lots a lot more disappointment, like what we saw 2 weeks ago with Keyshawn Davis. So luckily having this fight on neutral ground works very well for both fights, but I expect Moloney to win.
Oh, you expect Moloney to win? Okay, cool. Main event of this card in Japan is actually one of my favorite fighters, and that is Masamichi Yabuki, right? Two division champion, defending the IBF belt at 112 pounds against Calixto. The challenger from Mexico, he's aggressive, right? But I think, Daniel, that Yabuki, he's one of the hardest hitters, low key, in those lower weight divisions. But he has one of the best jabs in all of boxing. He kind of old man these guys when it comes to the way he wins, right? It looks like he doesn't do a lot, but he's very effective when in his work, right? If you're a hardcore observer of the lower weight division, you remember him for his two fights with Kenshiro Taraji, 2021, 2022, right? First fight, he stopped Taraji. Second fight was arguably Taraji's best performance of his career. He came out with a fire in his eyes and stopped Yabuki in 3 rounds. But Yabuki has gone on from there to he won another world title at 108, moved up to 112 pounds, and he gets the win here. He's talking about unification. I would love to see him fight Ola Skawaga, who's WBO champion at 112 pounds. But first, he must take care of business against Calixto. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing his name right. I know I'm butchering it. Rene, I'll say that because that's his first name. Your thoughts on this upcoming title defense for Yabuki?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to not say his name. It's either Calixto or Calixto?
Calixto.
Calixto. Okay.
Calixto.
Okay. Just want to make sure because sometimes if you make it pronounce it like Mexico, even though Mexico, obviously in English, Mexico has an X, but in Spanish you don't hear it. So there's that. But going into this fight, like you mentioned, after the way he lost that fight against Kenshiro, Yabuki pretty much has been on the tear. And luckily he has stayed well enough in divisions to be kind of under the radar a little bit for people like Bam to try to circle around, even though Bam has stated, I think before, that he could still make 112. So
you mean 115?
Yeah. Yabuki luckily has stuck around just well below that area, which actually suits him fairly well. Because the way he executes his jab, the way he does fight, I would call it old man. I would call it in the way where he just outsmarts you. In the way he doesn't bully, he just outsmarts you. And I expect him when it comes to this fight as well, because one thing when it comes to a lot of lower weight division fights, they know they have to set up for things down the line. And unifications in these weight divisions, particularly 105, 108, up to certain aspects of 112, they don't happen that often. Now, granted, a lot of it just has to do with the fact that not a lot of people stick around in those weight classes for a good while because your body naturally grows. But for the people that do, they normally stay in their corner, protecting their slide in the division. Hopefully, Yabuki beats Calixto fairly well, and then you have the unification thing going because he can be the king of 112, and Bam could be the 115, then possibly go into a little bit into bantamweight himself.
Quick word on this, Gil.
Yeah, I think he's going to have no problem here. Yeah, most people, remember the loss to Nakatani, which honestly has held up really well since then. He's been on a tear ever since. And you're so right, Daniel, to your point. He is a smart fighter. Guys like that pick up something new because they're paying so much attention in every fight. And he's had just some great wins. I mean, he completely took out Natshinka. He completely took out Ayala. He's just buzzed along, and he's just getting smarter and therefore better, and smarter and therefore better because of the way he fights, as he goes along. So he'll take care of business. I have no doubt of that. And then the smaller weight divisions, they are sort of circling around. They will move. Depends on, will Moloney win? Olasquaga is very well known in Japan. There's just a lot of things going on there that they can recombine. And, for a lot of these fighters, especially along the Pacific Rim, if you will, the Americans, the Asian fighters, and the money's in Japan. That's why La Princesa is there so often. It's where he's getting paid.
Absolutely. Last fight here, I didn't put it in the docket, and thank you, Gail, for sending me the info on this in the private chat. Chris Billum-Smith is also fighting this weekend in the UK, I believe, and that's important because Billum-Smith is in contention for a world title fight. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he may have been ordered as a mandated title defense for someone, or he gets a world title fight should he win. And we talked about David Benavidez earlier. That's a potential. Billum-Smith is a potential visible name for him should he decide to stick around for at least one more fight at cruiserweight.
Right. Billum-Smith is the A side. He's fighting Ryan Rozicki of Canada. They're in Bournemouth, England. Yes. So I am not sure there is any U.S. television of this. It's a Sky Sports event. But whoever wins the fight, not just Billum-Smith, but let's say Rosicky pulls the upset, it would be
I
an upset.
believe that
It's
fight is on the
possible.
zone. Don't
I
I believe it's on the
don't,
zone. Don't
don't
quote
see
me
it
on
on,
that, but I believe it's
I
on the
don't see
zone.
it on their schedule. So
Okay.
some of these fights are showing up on Triller. So I didn't have a chance to check this before we started chatting. Folks, you're on your own to figure that one out. But whoever wins is a possible mandatory or ordered fight, or just simply a voluntary made fight for Opataya. Now remember, Zuffa's rules, Zuffa doesn't have the Ali Act changes on its side just yet. So let's assume they did. Well, it doesn't cover fights that don't take place in the United States. So it's very possible Bill Smith and Opataya could have that title fight offshore somewhere. US law doesn't apply. Now, his contract with Zuffa might apply, but again, money talks, and that's a good fight. Assuming that Bill Smith does win, he has really rebuilt his career up to this point very nicely, and I would like to see him get a decent shot. And on the very outside, there's David Benavidez standing there who may need a dance partner. Who knows?
And I think we're going to end things on that note. Again, Jacob had to leave early, so I want to thank him for joining us on the show. We're going to do our best to have him back on the show. Once again, fingers crossed. Again, if you want to talk boxing, if you want to talk all things television and film, you can do so with him on Twitter, or because I refuse to call it, at JRATM. Let me repeat that, at JRATM. Also want to thank MG is here for his questions and comments. If you're not done so, please make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure you subscribe. That way you'll get notifications for all future episodes and shorts from a particular episode. I'll go around the panel here. We'll begin with ladies first. End things with ladies first. Gail Falkenthal on boxing and NY fights. For the folks who want to talk all things boxing related, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find my information. My written columns are at nyfights.com, nyfights.com. My interview series is at Gail Falkenthal on boxing. I know it's a whopper, but not that hard to find on YouTube for looking that up. And if you have not watched my interview with Jack Hirsch about his authorized biography of Michael Jinx Spinks, I warmly recommend it. He was phenomenal. The story of how he got it together, his access to Spinks, his access to a lot of the people in his life, behind the scenes about how the book came together is just as interesting as the facts about Spinks' life and what he chose to focus on and what he didn't. And he talks a lot about how the whole project came together. So I warmly recommend you to that. I can also confirm, having just checked my notes quickly, Bill Smith versus Rosicky is not on DAZN at this moment. So go find it at whatever outlet it is. I have not checked Triller TV. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it pops up.
Daniel from Full Boxing News and the Inscriber, for those who want to talk all things boxing, for those who want to talk all things pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You see the source on there, folks. Source online on Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Spill, pretty much any place that I was able to put my tag on, I put it on there. Like I said, definitely catch you on there. I know recently have done pretty much I would say a trumpet of guest appearances on a channel that hopefully we have somebody coming in. Jason Ingram, Blitzball champ, guarding a lot when it comes to wrestling coming in. Definitely catching on, folks. But let's hopefully now, as we're getting into June, as we're starting to see more fights getting scheduled in, because now obviously we have big ones coming up. Xander versus Boots. Obviously, we have Canelo versus Billy. anything when it comes to potentially involving Usyk or Wilder, we got to pay attention to that in that manner. And like Gail just mentioned, we know where Williamson Verzik is going to be. Zuffa Boxing 7.
Indeed. Thanks for that update, Gail. For those who want to talk boxing, um, music, fitness, fragrance, you know what it is with me on these social media streets. You can check me out on Twitter, Brother JR, um, at Brother JR76. You can check me out on IG and on Blue Sky, Brother JRSC. And as I said at the very beginning, early in the show, um, if you want to check out, buy anything from the Nazar and Navarre fragrances. If you're into smell goods, if you're into colognes, perfumes, body care products, etc., use the code Michael W P4P. That is pound for pound boxing report code. You will get 15% off on all things from both Navarre and Nazar fragrances. On the next episode, we will do a recap of the doubleheader in Japan. Willibaldo Garcia defending the IBF belt at 115 against Andrew Moloney. Masamichi Yabuki defending the IBF 112 belt against Rene Calixto. And we may talk Luis Neri versus John Rael Casimiro. They're fighting on that card as well. We'll also talk Chris Bellum Smith. This is upcoming fight against Ruzicki. And we will preview the bantamweight debut of one Jesse Bam Rodriguez as he fights Antonio Vargas on the 13th in Glendale, Arizona, and on the Zone. Also, that same evening, Jake Paul returning with another series of his all women's card. Tierra Brown defending her belt at 120, her world belt at 126. Evelyn Bermudez, as far as I'm concerned, one of the elite women's fighters in the world, defending her unified belts at 108 pounds. O'Shea Jones defending her IBF belt at 154 pounds. So we will talk about all of those fights again. I want to thank MG for his comments. I want to thank Jacob for joining us in the show earlier. For Gail Falkenthal of Gail Falkenthal on boxing and whitefights.com. For Daniel for Boxing News and the Inscriber, I have been your host, Michael. This has been episode 489 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night. And before I sign off, rest in power, rest in honor, Peebo Bryson.